Hey, it's Marco here. It's part two of purchasing property in Croatia and getting screwed on that purchase. This is another theoretical session. After this one, I'm going to go out into the field to a few of the Croatian islands. I'm going to show you some real life on the ground examples of how people got screwed purchasing property in Croatia. But today I'm talking about lack of disclosure, or essentially zero disclosure that sellers provide in Croatia, which is very detrimental to you as the buyer, especially as a foreign buyer who doesn't really understand what's going on. To understand the mentality of the Croatian seller selling property, you have to understand the mentality of the Croatian people. We could talk about this for hours, but I'll give you a quick example. I've lived in Canada most of my life. I've been to the grocery store thousands of times in Canada. I've been to the grocery store thousands of times in Croatia. In Canada, if there's one till open and there's 10 people in line, when the second till opens, everyone looks at the second person in line and mentions to him or her that another till has opened and invites him or her to be the first person to go to the newly opened till. Why is that? It's because the second person in line has been waiting the longest. This type of scenario plays out in Canada 99.9% of the time. In Croatia, it's a different story. There's 10 people waiting in line, another till opens. The 10th person, the person that's been waiting the least amount of time, immediately runs to the newly opened till. This is because they feel like they've gamed the system. They've been able to navigate the situation better than everyone else, especially that second and third and fourth person that have been waiting there at the only open till. And the same mentality is passed on to the scenario of selling property. The seller wants to feel like they've gamed the system and somehow they've made out better on the transaction than the buyer who's purchasing their property has. So in Canada, when a seller is selling an apartment or a condo, they have to fill out, at least in my province, a 6-page document which has 50 questions on it. You know, are you aware of any structural problems with the building? Are you aware of any water issues with the building? Are you aware of any sewer problems with the building? Are you aware of any leaks or unrepaired damage? There's 50 questions the seller has to sign, yes or no. If there are issues, the seller has to explain those issues. That property disclosure form is attached to the contract of purchase and sale. Therefore, if there is an issue down the road, the buyer can take legal recourse against the seller if they have lied on that property disclosure form. I've sold over 1,000 properties in Canada. And of course, in every country, there are people that lie. But for the most part, most of my sellers are quite honest because they don't want to get into legal trouble after they've sold the property. A lot of my sellers actually want to over disclose in terms of what's happened with their unit over the years. In Croatia, this is a scenario I'll give you within my own family. 5 years ago, I go see a cousin here in Zagreb. My cousin lives on the top floor of an apartment building. He's selling his condo and he's painting the ceiling. I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, yeah, you know, we've been having moisture issues every winter in our ceiling because the building refuses to repair the roof properly. So we've decided to sell. There's a lot of stains in the ceiling, but it's May, it stopped raining. So we're gonna paint all the stains on the ceiling and we're gonna put the apartment or condo up for sale. So my first question was like, well, are you gonna disclose it to potential buyers? And he literally laughed at me. Sellers in Croatia are not gonna disclose shit to you. If there's problems pertaining to the building, they're not gonna let you know. If there's problems in the paperwork, they're not gonna let you know. They're gonna try to grab your money and run. So as the buyer, you have to understand the mentality of the average Croatian seller. And that's why you get some really weird discrepancies in the marketplace. For example, in Canada and in most countries, people pay the most for top floor. Why? Because you have no one above you, you have the best view, you get the most sunlight. In Croatia, people run away from top floor units because they know it's probably leaking, the building doesn't want to repair it, and the seller is probably lying and just painted the ceiling a week before they put the unit up on the market. So you have to understand this mentality And you have to basically go out there and do your own due diligence, which means hiring a very knowledgeable realtor that's going to be familiar with the buildings in the area, hiring a lawyer that's going to go over the paperwork. You basically have to do 110% of your own due diligence, because the seller is trying to game you and is definitely not disclosing problems with the property you're trying to purchase. That's it for now. Marco from Croatia.